illusions that what he's doing is not bad, right? He just thinks it's for the greater good.
It's necessary, right?
Yeah, and if anything, he sees himself as almost a martyr.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Well, because he's the one. He talks about the idea that he's the only one that has the will to be able to do this, because nobody else actually possesses the will. I'm really hoping that this is kind of the continuation of a trend that we've seen with the last few movies, where with Killmonger and Black Panther, you could argue somewhat with Adrian Toomes and Spider-Man, that we're getting more to a point where we're bringing in villains that have that motivation that's understandable, that as you're watching, it sort of makes you check your spirit, where you're like, wait a minute, I'm empathizing with this, I'm relating with this.
Mm-hmm.
Should I be? And if I am, why am I feeling this way? And what is that, what is that awakening in me? And is that a good thing? Is it a bad thing? And I think it's really a great vehicle to get people to turn inward a little bit and think about themselves.
Yeah. It reminds. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. It actually reminds me of the end of The Watchmen. The end of in this movie, Infinity War, reminds me of at the end of The Watchmen, when you have Ozymandias accomplishing his mission. Right.
Yeah.
And when you get that scene of Thanos looking out over the sunset, I was just thinking, if Rorschach was there, he would be saying the same thing. Like, you're so full of crap. If you were so righteous, you would be one of the people that disappeared.
Yeah.
Right. So
and speaking of, I have a little bit about that very end, so I'm just going to mention it really quick. The musical cue at the end there, when he is looking out over the sunset, is so poignant, and just is that quick little resolution into the major key at the very, very last moment, just signifying his satisfaction and his sense of accomplishment, I thought was an incredibly effective little bit of music. And I was really, really glad to see that it was not Mark Silvestri. That's the comic artist.
Alan Silvestri.
Alan Silvestri, thank you. It was back for the soundtrack, or for the score on this one, because in all of superhero cinema, I find that there are few pieces of music more stirring than the Avengers theme. It's such an amazing piece of music, and the way that it sort of weaves its elements together, sort of to signify these disparate and different characters coming together to form, a greater whole. And the way that's mirrored in the music is so cool. I loved when Steve's team shows up to help Wanda and Vision, that they're also, if you listen carefully, it incorporates a little bit of the team up theme from Age of Ultron as well. And that was also a really, really cool team up theme, and I found it very interesting that they incorporated that theme as well into the score for this movie.
It may sound somewhat musically sacrilegious, but I would say that the Avengers theme is one of those pieces of music that maybe even rivals, to some degree, the Superman theme, like the original, 1978 Superman theme by John Williams.
It's certainly a very effective piece of music. Nothing is ever going to be the Superman theme, because the Superman theme is so universally recognized, and it's so hopeful, and like when you hear it, it's almost like you have to sort of stop yourself from smiling when you hear like the Superman theme, because Superman's coming, it's gonna be okay. And that's why Man of Steel was such a terrible movie. Anyway,
But see, on that same point, the way you react to the Superman theme, not that I don't react that way, I do, but I react in a much similar manner to the Avengers theme. Like when it comes on, when I'm in the middle of weight training or something, I mean, I take it up to another level. I'm ready to go. Like let's do this thing. So
no, it is an incredibly effective and very stirring piece of music. You get no argument from me on that. I'm just, in terms of its lasting cultural significance, nothing is ever going to be the Superman theme. Another quick thing that I wanted to mention just about the way that this film was adapted from the source material, I was 100% also ready to see Loki step into the role that Mephisto has in the Infinity Gauntlet miniseries. What do you guys think about that?
Yes, like absolutely. He's the only one from the current MCU that could do it and do it well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because that was an interesting thing about the Mephisto angle in the Infinity Gauntlet, that like you knew, he's literally the devil, like he's playing his own angle, and I think it would have been really interesting to see Loki step into that role. But once again, Kevin Feige is smarter than I am, and and I think it's a better thing that we get, because if anyone has listened, to past episodes, Jeff and I have been talking a lot about Loki's, character arc throughout all of these movies. And what I find absolutely fascinating is in this movie, in his final act, Loki steps into and accepts his identity as an Odinson. He finally takes on that identity and is able to go out a hero.
The reason that I loved that moment more than I expected to, as opposed to being crushed and horrified by it, is because, like you said, Kevin Feige is smarter than we are, but it invalidated some of my criticism of Thor Ragnarok, because I was very concerned about whether or not some of the character development that you see in that film, or think you see in the film, might not carry over and essentially would be left at the feet of the humor in the film. But what I found in going and seeing it a couple of times was, that character development was actually genuine, and my concern, at least when it came to character development in the previous film, was not necessarily as grounded as I thought it was.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just old school, but I don't like Loki to have character development.
That's funny.
To me, he's the scorpion that stings the fox crossing the river. He just can't help it. He cannot help but put his, hand in the cookie jar. Right.
Yeah. Well, but see, you still have that, because the reason that Thanos obtains the Tesseract in the first place is because Loki did that. He is true to his character, and it does have implications for everybody because of that. But I like the redemption moment for Loki at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I say it in jest a little bit.
But even there, did Loki do what he did because he's the Scorpion, or did he do what he did because he saw it as sort of a sleight of hand opportunity to try to get rid of Thanos, having stepped into that Odin's son identity and wanting to have that hero moment?
Yeah, it's hard to say, because obviously, it's all happening so fast there. I don't know just how deeply we can dig into that. But Rob, I would love to hear from you some more, because I feel like we've kind of monopolized the conversation so far, and we've been talking for like 45 minutes, and we haven't like gotten more than like 5 minutes into the body of the film yet in terms of like what we're talking about. So give us some things that really resonated with you, and what this movie kind of like made you think about.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I really want to take a deep dive into the Soul Stone moment with Thanos and Gamora, but I do want to make a comment on the end of the movie, just as you guys were talking about the music and all of that stuff. I thought it was really interesting that you interpreted that as Thanos' satisfaction in his work, because it comes right on the heels of that scene, which I found kind of to be emotionally poignant, where he sees the child Gamora.
Right.
And, she says, "Did you do it?" And he says, "Yes." Mm-hmm. And she says, "What did it cost?" And he says, everything.
Yeah.
Right. And, definitely what's left unsaid, and thank goodness, because if this were a DC movie, they would have said it, was it worth it?
Yes.
Right. And at that moment, like, he has tears coming down his face. And I thought that was the moment that really links him to his comic book character, where when he finally gets the thing he thinks he wants, he's not satisfied by it. Right?
I would completely agree with that, yeah.
And then that little kind of uptick in the music right at the very end, to me, instead of it being Thanos' satisfaction in his work, I interpreted that as there's still hope. Right? Not necessarily just about like, how Thanos is feeling at the moment, but this thing's not over.
Right.
So that's kind of how I interpreted the end there. But yeah, any comments on that before we jump into the Soul Stone piece?
No, I think I think that's probably at least equally as valid an interpretation, and I like the thought process that goes into that. That gives us some things to think about, and something that sort of we have to like keep in the back of our heads as context for everything that we're going to be talking about is that literally we've only seen half of this movie.
Yeah, for sure.
So like anything and everything that we like have to say and that we think about what's going on here is absolutely going to be up for total reinterpretation as soon as we like see the other half of this story and like know where it's actually going.
Yeah. So why don't we jump into the Soul Stone piece?
Because, go for it.
Yeah, I found myself really, really conflicted, and that was definitely, one of the first times where, I mean, before that you get Thanos with young Gamora and like the scene of them coming together and all of that stuff, but I wasn't completely bought in until the Soul Stone moment, because I don't know, do either of you have kids?
Yeah, I do.
I don't.
Okay. So your kids don't understand why you're doing what you're doing.
Yep.
Right? And
yes,
one of the
true.
things, like one of the things that I'm terrified of, especially as a Christian, is, my kids kind of getting older and being like, why do you believe these crazy things? Why do you believe this stuff? Why do you do the things that you do? They don't make sense to me. As a matter of fact, I think you're wrong and evil.
Right?
Yeah. And, just that whole thing where Gamora looks at Thanos and looks at Red Skull. By the way, awesome that it's Red Skull.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
But when she says, "This isn't love. You don't love me," right? And she's wrong. She is wrong. He does love her. Right? And
that was
she
honestly,
can't
that was one of the
recognize
most shocking moments.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no, that was a shocking moment. Like, and it really again, it makes this the Thanos movie that like he truly does, he does love her. And I've heard criticism of this that sort of isn't earned, and they just sort of like, he loves her because the story decrees it to be so. But I buy it.
Yeah, I buy it for